Thanks, everyone, for being here at our part 4 of our MotorTraxx to MaxxTraxx Getting Started kind of 4-part webinar series. What I wanted to cover today was, again, highlight some of the points in the Getting Started guide, Getting Started workbook that we had talked about on part 1 on our first webinar, just because there was some highlights in there that hopefully at this point you guys have had a chance to take a peek at and get some questions. So this is going to be a real interactive opportunity for you guys to ask questions. So I'll pause every minute or so and see if there's questions out there. And also want to go over a little bit about the setups and let you guys know about some of the different features that are available. Okay, Gary, can you hear me okay?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, wonderful. So getting back to the Getting Started workbook, can you guys see the Getting Started guide here on my screen? You guys see this okay?
Yeah,
okay.
I see it just fine.
Okay, you know, I'm going to leave it enlarged. I think it's easier to read this way. So a little bit about this Getting Started guide. I know if you guys have read every word in here, but we talked a little bit about step 1 through 10, and again, verifying your hardware specs, making sure that backup is set up. And as I've mentioned in a couple of the follow-up emails, we are very happy to load you guys up on a practice version. And again, it's no commitment. You essentially need to have the right amount of hardware specifications to run the program. And then once we get connected up, takes 5 minutes, get us connected up, we'll load a practice version with your MotorTraxx data loaded. And I do have a shop out there, God bless them, have been on a practice version for a year. And that's just their pace. A lot of people, I would say most shops usually are on a practice version 1 to 2 months. But it gives you an opportunity that when you do get a little bit of lag time, if you ever do, hopefully not too often, but it happens, the whole idea is just to recreate one repair order a day. And it kind of forces you through the motions of learning the little, each little nuance, each little feature available in MaxxTraxx without the pressure. So again, I just want to let you guys know we can get that set up for you at any time. And again, step 3 is checklist. Let's take a peek at that because we're going to talk about those tasks here in a minute. So I'm going to just buzz right on down to our task list. So as you guys saw, there were a couple different checklists, but we are specifically the checklist for MotorTraxx converted data shops. As I mentioned in our part 1, the ones with the asterisks are the ones that have to be set up before you guys write that first repair order. And essentially it's your company information, and Rhonda's fabulous about getting your company information set up for you. The repair order and parts invoice setup, which I'm going to be going over in a little bit more detail today, gives you an option of all these customizable features that tie in the features into the workflow. So it prompts you. It reminds you to do a bunch of things, and we're going to cover that in a minute. Now, you could just use the default, or frankly, I have worked with some shops. I'm like, you know what, let me get in there, 2 minutes. I'm just going to set it all up the way I would do it, and trust me on that. And I'd be more than happy to do that with any of you guys with a practice version or once you go live, and just give you a quick rundown of what those features are. Now, this workstation printing and miscellaneous info setup, this section is set up on each individual workstation. It's a couple extra features, and I'll just highlight those again. But these things I'm talking about right here, I do have a training video that steps through these key areas. The most important one, if you were to do nothing else, I don't even care if it didn't even say your company name, is you really just need to set up your sales tax rate. So if you write that first invoice, you guys are charging the right sales tax. And then the employees and employee permissions. We have that set up so that you can assign the technician initials or technician codes to labors. So again, not a big deal. Once you guys learn what these features are, this takes probably less than 5 minutes to get set up completely. And then again, these are all the other setup things that you can do on the fly. So I want to stop right here and see, has anybody looked at these different features on this checklist, these tasks, and does anybody have questions about any of these features so far? Now, does that mean that nobody's actually looked at any of these tasks yet? You know, we'll get
I know for Roger Krause, you
Mm-hmm.
know, all of our stuff got transferred over because when Rhonda set us up with the practice version,
Right.
pretty much all of this stuff came over, so it became about using it and figuring out what actually gets transferred over, what doesn't. So
Okay.
I haven't looked at this because Rhonda sort of spoiled me.
Well, and like I said, she does do your company information, and pretty much this repair order and parts invoice setup section, you could just leave everything on the defaults. It's absolutely true. And the same with the workstation setup. You could leave it on this default. The one thing I'm not sure, Rhonda, if she started doing this just because, frankly, she gets the tech support calls after the fact when somebody's run the program for 3 days and has the wrong sales tax in there. She's pretty good about changing her sales tax too. So we do try to make it as easy as possible. And I guess your employees came over. Rosemary, did it have your employee codes so you could assign employee codes already in the converted data for you?
You know what? I think that it did. I don't want to say it definitely did. I think that it did because when we go to write repair orders and stuff, it hasn't asked for that info yet.
Okay.
But see, here's the thing. I haven't paid attention too much to the repair orders because of the fact that I don't write them now, so I don't know what to look for and not to look for.
Right. I think that they do come over now that I think about it a little bit more. But if you wanted to set up security, I think we needed to go in and put in passwords for these guys. So that's probably what comes over. So that's important. And, let's jump down a little bit for accounting users since we have a ton of accounting users on today's call. The fiscal year start date, I'd say 85% of all shops are January 1st, fiscal year start date. So that's not a problem. And the default account posting, probably 95% of all shops leave them on the default account posting. And if you guys have any questions about that, we can go into that. And the same for the product codes. Not as many people use product codes. This is actually a really cool tool, but I'm trying to think, we only broke it down, correct me if I'm wrong, Walter, into general inventory in tires because we wanted to track our tire sales individually and run reports. Is that correct?
Yes.
I think that's all we broke it down to. So all this other stuff, let's look real quick on this. Whoops.
And then I just did confirm that, yeah, our employee codes and information did transfer over.
Did come over. Excellent. So really, it's just, yes.
The one other one that they may consider that I'm working on is they may want to put the supply charges off to its own account so they can make sure that if they're charging a hazardous material or supply charge, that they're aware of how much money they're making or how much money they're losing on that. I mean, there's a couple of ways of doing it, but that's the only other one that I can think of.
I'm pretty sure, Walter, that the default is that they do go into their own supply charge. So, let's jump right into that. So we've talked a little bit about the checklist. I'll leave it up. But let's go into MaxxTraxx. So here under setups, this is the lion's share of your guys' setup under the repair orders and parts invoices. And as I mentioned, most of this can be just left on its defaults. And Rhonda does a little bit of the setup for us, God bless her. So here's your shop rate. It defaults to labor rate. So here's your shop rate. You just put in your labor rate. And this is if you have different labor rates, for fleet. Rosemary, you may have special customers, race customers that get a different rate. But again, this is labor for a shop rate. So average labor cost per hour. We talked a little bit about this on part one. Sometimes this is just a guesstimate. I'll just leave this as a guesstimate for now, and if you guys have any questions about that specifically, you might want to dial into one of our tech support people, and we could talk a little bit more about that. We also have a webinar that talks about productivity that goes into this average labor cost per hour. Now, I've got a little bit of background noise here, guys. Hold on a second. I don't know where that's coming from, but it looks like it stopped anyway. Sorry about that, guys. Miscellaneous charges, Walter, is what you're talking about. Now, the system comes, and most states actually still have supply charge. California has gotten all over us about not having just a a generalized supply charge. You have to itemize it now. But the supply charge here goes to this miscellaneous charge product code called miscellaneous supplies. If we click on this, you could see under miscellaneous supplies, it goes to its own income account. So it does actually show up on the general ledger as its own sales account. Now, it doesn't have a cost of goods because we don't inventory miscellaneous supplies. When we purchase miscellaneous supplies and we do a restock parts invoice, if you enter it under the miscellaneous supplies section or the supply charge section, it goes to its own cost of goods. Does anybody have any questions on that or want to hear more about that? Okay, if you, like I said, it pretty much is the default. But here is where you put in your percentage if you're going to base it on parts or percentage based on labor. And here's your max, by the way. And it's taxable or not taxable. I'll tell you right now, this is your own opinion, this is your own opinion. Talk with your accountant about it. But most states consider supply charges tangible property. You're actually using tangible property on people's vehicles, so it is taxable just like parts are. But again, check with your accountant on that. Now, the reason why there's two steps, yeah.
I just want to interject in or back on that maximum miscellaneous charge or any place where we have a maximum charge. What a lot of people don't realize is if they leave that at 0, no matter what percentage they put, the maximum it's going to charge is going to be 0. So we get a lot of calls that my supply charges aren't working, and it's only because they haven't set a maximum that it will allow.
Right, leaves it at 0. Great, Rex, I appreciate that. Yeah, good feedback back on that, guys. And of course, you guys know you can edit that at the RO level. I'll touch on that when we're looking at ROs real quick because I want to cover a little bit in the process about what these different features do. Now, the add-on charges these are the ones that are charged. This add-on charge is at the individual part level or at the labor level. Okay, I don't know what that was going on. Sorry, guys. So what happens is if you put a part on your RO, like an oil filter, you can tie a hazardous material charge to it so it always shows up. Hang on a sec, guys. So it always shows up whenever you sell that part. Now, with the labor, like, for example, I have technical services. I had a diagnostic labor. Anytime I charged this particular diagnostic labor, it would charge an additional $15 per hour for technical services. If we had to call Identifix, the AC Delco Tech Line, whatever, but we had that as a individual add-on charge per hour of diagnostic used. And again, these can all be edited at the individual level, but that's what these individual add-on charges are for.
How do you tie it to a particular part? Let's say like that hazardous material. If it's only on one
let's
of them.
do that real quick. So I'm going to go into part search. I'm going to look at an individual oil filter. Here we go. You know, guys, hold on a minute. I need to take care of this. We got a lot of that background noise. I'm not sure where it's coming from. Okay, Rusty, it was coming from yours. I just took you off here just for a minute. So under the oil filter, you would go under User Charges. And here, I could charge $1. And every time, let's see, I had this in here, obviously, for an example, tire disposal. So every time I now sell this oil filter, it's automatically going to add on a hazardous materials fee of $1. So, and when I do that, let's look at that.
And that's a line item that would be added to the invoice?
Sure is. Yeah, let's look at it. So it's 06A115. Let's see, save it. Let's save it. Let's open up this one. Okay, so if I go here, click on Add Parts, Parts from List, what's that, 06A115. So if I'm going to select that, and it's right here, I can actually edit it if I wanted, but see, it's automatically there already. And no cost. Yeah, that's okay. I know I don't have a cost. But now if I hit on Summary, so you don't really see it on this picture. I wouldn't see that $1 anywhere, but if I hit on Summary, it's going to show up under Hazardous Materials. oh, actually, I had one for the other filter. There's $2 because I actually have 2 filters on here. And this one probably, if I double-click on it, oh, it doesn't have one there. I thought it might. Let's see, engine oil. Oh, check on the engine oil. 20 cents. So I've got 5 quarts. So this is a good question. I have 5 quarts times that add-on charge is 20 cents per part. So because I use 5 of these quarts of oil, it's going to charge a total of $1. So I actually have it already had it tied to the oil. So that's
how many add-on charges are you allowed? Does the system allow just the 3 there? Or?
Yeah, I've got my vote in here to expand this a little bit. But yes, it's 3 add-on charges per part, and it's either a flat amount or a percentage. The third option is it runs as a percentage. And
but it's the same 3 for all the parts. I mean, you can't have
correct.
10 different add-on charges.
Correct. Like I said, I've got a vote in there. I'm sure Rex is listening that we might expand that a little bit because I would. You know, you have all sorts of things. We have tire disposal that's enforced by the state. I have tire disposal that you may collect for yourself because you have to pay for tire disposal. We have hazardous materials, like I said, tech services. I mean, I've seen all sorts of different charges here. So, yeah, I think if we expand this, it'd be nice. But we also, just to show you, have that under labor. See, add-on charges. Now, hazardous materials I also charge to labor. I'm trying to think, you know, what an example of how I would have tied it to this. But you can see my add-on charge is different. It was hazardous materials and tire disposal. Now it says hazardous materials and tech services because here I may charge a tech service fee. And again, that also shows up under this summary link as its own item. So yeah, and those again, we saw where to set that up. Real quick, guys, while we're here, I wanted to show you on Miscellaneous because we're going to talk about this. This is tax code. This is where you reselect your tax code. We're going to talk about that, so I wanted to just remind you about that. So let's go back to the all my features, to the setups and repair orders and parts invoice. So a little bit about miscellaneous charge, add-on charges. Now the RO setup, this is a big section, and if I were to sit here and explain this all to you guys, it could take forever, but I'm just going to do a quick run through. But these are all the great little features that you can turn on, off and on. This prints the technician's certifications if it's in their employee record. So if, you know, you have John is on this repair order, his tech certification number will show up under notes. Print revisions of original estimate. A lot of shops, a lot of states require this, and you can turn it on automatically or not. Print labor service hours. Some people don't like to put the, 4.2 hours. They just want the entire, dollar amount of labor service or labor charge. So you have an option here. Print tax breakdown. That's actually for Canada. They are required by law to have the 3 different tax levels. Actually, they just added a 4th one, I understand, this year. Show notes on printed RO. This is just to default it on or off, and I'll show you at the original or at the invoice level. Let me make a quick note where you actually can turn that on and off. So we'll talk about that in a minute. Put down notes. Now, check mileage in and out. If you check this box, it asks for an in, and then when you close your RO, it asks for an out. I have mine set up that way. We always were a very big test drive shop. We test drove just about every single shop and every single vehicle that came in there, even an oil change job. And so you can turn this on. If you don't have this checked, it just prompts you for the single mileage when the vehicle's there. Print promise date, again, required in some states. This just prints at the bottom, and it says that you promise to have it done by tomorrow at 6 o'clock. And you can turn that feature on and off. Again, that's a legal requirement. Warn if revision of estimate is needed. And this is a really nice feature. This, again, is a prompt in your workflow that if the estimate goes above the original estimate, and we'll talk about that when I show you the RO again, that you have an option here to click on the link on the left, or it pops up automatically and says, hey, get authorization. Now, you can override that. Let's say you're adding a brake job and you're adding a cooling system flush and maybe you need some hoses. You can skip through it a couple of times, and then on the third one say, okay, now I'm going to get the customer on the horn, get my authorization. And I'll show you what that looks like here in a minute. Warn if no techs are assigned to a labor. This is a handy feature, whether or not you guys pay flat rate or commission or not. I think it's important to have that because I'll let you know who did the job in case there's a comeback. Pay commission before discount. This is if you pay commission on gross sales to your service writer or your technicians. So that's just a feature to turn on or off. Confirm average mileage. You know, the system actually does a pretty darn good job of doing your average mileage, but this gives you an opportunity to override it. Let's say somebody just bought a car and the average mileage was, you know, it was a fleet vehicle, so they're putting 60,000 miles on it every year. Well, now if it's just a, you know, a around town driver, you can change that average mileage because it will say if a 2005 with 300,000 miles on it, it thinks that you're going to drive 60,000 miles a year. You may say, you know what, I'm just going to drive this 12,000 miles a year. So you have an opportunity to change it. So yes, a feature you can turn on and off. I actually didn't use that one very often. Some shops don't want to put the part numbers on the repair order. So you do have the ability to take that off. And this is a great marketing feature, guys. And again, you can override it, but it's a good habit to get into. Ask for a new appointment after paying the RO. Whether or not you guys actually talk to the customer, say, Mr. Customer, do you want to come in 3 months? You may want to actually make an appointment for them, even if you don't tell them. And it'll show up on your schedule 3 months from now. And if you guys are using the appointment reminder feature, it prompts you to call the customer and say, hey, you know, you guys are due for an oil change. Do you want me to get that scheduled? And then you can actually put the actual date, you know, once you're 3 months from now. Say, oh, yeah, next Thursday would be great. And then you guys can just change that appointment to a specific date and time that the customer wants. But this is a great marketing feature to get in the habit of using. So like I said, there's a lot of information in this one section. Now, this ask when opening a repair order, that's where it prompts you, and I'll show you this in a minute, to enter a technician, your customer source, and your mileage. And the technician, if you enter your technician's initials in the very beginning, every labor service that you add from that point forward will automatically have their initials on it. That way you don't have to go into each and every one and add their initials. So it's kind of nice to do it when you first open that RO to assign a technician. Now you may not know right away. That's okay. Skip it the first time, and the next time you open up that RO, like if you're getting ready to print a tech worksheet and assign it to a technician, put their initials in then, like I said, just because then you don't have to go in individually and put them in. Customer source, this is huge. A lot of people turn this feature off, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to badger you into putting it back on because it's so important, guys, to just collect this information because 6 months from now, when you go to renew that $12,000 a year yellow page ad, or you are deciding whether or not to invest more in your website, it's important to know where your customers are coming from. It kind of gives you an idea where to put your money and what's working, or if a particular coupon is working or not working. I think it's huge. And then, of course, mileage. And because if you didn't have this checked, you would have to remember to go under a link and put in mileage. And I know about you, if it's not in my workflow, I'm not tempted to do it as often. And these boxes right here just tell you when it pops open. When it first opened, when you open up the RO, when you close it, when you mark it as complete, when paid. This can get a little crazy, so you might want to not check all 4. Just figure out what works best for you. So I want to stop real quick and see if you guys have any questions at this point. Hey, Bruce, I just unmuted you, so if you have any questions, you came in late. And Rusty, I've got you unmuted there. We had just a little bit of background noise with you there for a few minutes. Okay, I'm going to go on if we don't have any more questions. Just so you know, the repair order printer set up, pretty much most shops are on default. Repair order number format set up. Most people just use a number, but I did see a shop the other day that puts in a prefix, back to Rusty, that puts in a prefix for the month that they're in. And they just go in at the beginning of every month and they put in, like for example, 08 for August. thought that was kind of interesting. And that way they just keep them all organized that way. You can do it and use it any way you want, letters, numbers. Sublet status and due date tracking. This is a cool feature, and I have mine set at required. And what this does is it forces you to put in when you expect to get that job back. If you guys are sending out rotors to be turned, or maybe you're sending out a head to be machined, it forces you to say, okay, when do you think you're going to get that back? That way you kind of are more, you're more tempted to actually say to that person, so when am I getting those back? And it's a scheduling tool, and I think it's pretty cool. We required it in our shop. This, of course, just puts at the bottom of your ROs and your technician worksheets in red, if you have a color printer, that discard old parts, or you have an opportunity at the RO level to say, no, this customer wants to see their old parts, so don't throw them in the garbage. Kind of cool feature. And then, again, another cool marketing feature, assign marketing letters to send when paying the RO. And this says, skip it, which I'm going to badger you. I wouldn't say ever skip it. Ask me. This is, do you want to send a thank you letter, or do you want to send a recommended services or an oil change notice, 3 months from now? And you can skip this, or you can require it. And, Walter's on the call. I remember he said every single solitary job that goes out that door had to have a marketing letter assigned, or else you put a buck in the bowl, and we got a lot of money that way. So now we actually have a feature that says you can force them now.
Hang on one second there.
Yeah.
The other thing that you can use it for, and it's going to be something that we're going to expand and define in the future, is you can use this for callbacks. It doesn't necessarily mean you're going to send a postcard or a letter. You can create a postcard and say it's my 4-day callback, it's my 90-day callback, it's my 180-day callback. So you can use it to drive callbacks.
Right.
And so
we actually used that before we had that great list, that customer list. We actually had a gal that she was our dedicated parts person, marketing person, and also drove the shuttle. She did our callbacks. We called every single solitary customer within 3 days. So that's how we used it. But we also have a really cool report that I'll touch base on that really quick, on that callback report, and how you can use that. Thanks, Walter. Mm-hmm. Real quick on the RO disclaimers. A lot of people just leave this, as we have it in the system. It's totally up to you. But the most important thing here, guys, make sure you change your warranty. This comes with I think a 12, actually I think it comes defaulted at 30 days, but everybody's different, so please go in and make sure you always change that. Trying to think what else in here. We had an opportunity to change our warranty box to put it in the up top or down below. Hey, that's another thing. I want to show you guys real quick while I'm thinking about it. Yeah, we'll save our changes. You guys know that you have the opportunity on this, I'm clicking on Preview Repair Order, to customize this entire upper portion if you want with your own logo. And I actually have I don't have a video, but I have a procedure on the website that talks about, this is really kind of cool, that you can customize this any way you want. So if you have any questions or want some help, please call in a tech support from that, because it's a real nice way to personalize your RO, which we didn't have an opportunity to do that great artwork in MotorTraxx, so it's kind of cool. So I wanted to touch on that real quick. So let's go ahead and talk about some things that we just talked about, the setup. Now again, and Rex mentioned this, Miscellaneous link is a very handy link. I used it a lot. Here is where that supply charge was. So if you guys get a pestering customer that says, there's no way I'm paying a supply charge, you can just zero it out right here at the invoice level. And then if you click on summary, you could see that the supply charge is gone. Hazard's there, but that supply charge is now gone. I had a handful of those. A couple other things under notes. I mentioned on notes. See, I have this defaulted to show notes on printed RO, and that's what this check, I actually had it defaulted to always print out the notes, but you can always uncheck it if you guys put in a bunch of technical information that you don't want to show up on the RO when it prints for the customer. And let me show you where it is. Notes here. Click on Preview, and there it is. The notes show up right here. Oh, there's that technician certification number, by the way. Paul's on it, and here's his certification number. So I want to show you a couple of features in there. A couple other things. Oh, revisions. If you click on this revisions link, again, this is something I probably wouldn't click on if I didn't have this in my workflow. This screen is what pops up in your eyes. Add new revision of estimate. It just prompts you to say, how did you contact this person? Oh, well, I emailed them. They emailed me back, and they authorized the work. And it was, found coolant leak or whatever, if you guys ended up having to do a cooling system inspection. So you can add that in and then go back to the preview repair order button here. It shows right here in a lot of states this is required. Here is your revision of your original estimate. And you could have like 6 revisions here. They'll all have their individual date and time, who you talked to, what your method was here, okay? So that's just how that revision works. Very cool feature, and like I said, some states required that. Let's close this. So now I'm going to go ahead and jump back to the RO and setup. Get out of here for now. And this is the bulk of this, guys. So disclaimers, we talked about the warranty. Restock setup, this is just if you guys want to have a default purchase order number. It just automatically generates on its own. Online integration, this is if you want to have information about the VIN lookup, you would be sending your repair order data to Carfax, and that would allow you to get that free kind of VIN decoded information. Just a real quick note on Carfax, though, guys. It does send the VIN, and it says the repair information, and I think it may send information about your shop. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, Rex. But it does not send any of your customer information to Carfax. I mean, that's a big deal where a lot of people were worried that if I check this box that Carfax would be getting my customer list. They don't send any customer information. We're the one who actually allows that, and nothing gets sent up to Carfax. Inventory setup, this talks a little bit, and this is pretty important. This talks a little bit about when you are restocking your parts invoices, what exactly gets prompted. And under this section, the first thing is, number one, do you want to track inventory? And everybody on this call pretty much tracks inventory. The other thing is add catalog parts to inventory list. Now, I mentioned in part 2 that you can go online and order parts directly from Napa or your Delco person or, your MotorTraxx people or your Parts Plus, WorldPack. Every time you add a catalog part to your RO, you could be compiling this inventory list. I think it's a really cool feature. 2 things primarily. You have that part in there. If you ever need to use it again, you have to retype it, or if you ever want to look it up, it's in there. But number 2, you also can track your purchase and your sales history, and of course what you paid for it last time you bought it. So I think this is very cool, and most shops on MaxxTraxx are using online parts ordering. I think we ordered 70% of our parts by doing it online. We still have a fair amount of dealer parts. Of course, you can't get them over the internet yet. But all of our WorldPack, which is our largest supplier at the time, all of our AC Delco, we actually didn't have the Napa interface at the time, but very cool feature. And buyouts to inventory list. I think you guys know my position on buyouts. I don't really use buyouts unless it's really a part that I'm not actually paying for. I use that buyout feature because it allows you to enter in no cost. And occasionally, if you're using a junkyard part that you don't buy from somebody, you pull it off an old vehicle, you're not going to have a cost. So I don't have it set up to add my buyouts to inventory list. But what's kind of cool is if you were to check this box, it now turns a buyout into a quick part. And that is just a feature in MaxxTraxx that allows you to add parts onto the RO without having to go through the Add a Part wizard. Now I've done a couple different tests myself to see if it's less keystrokes. You know what? I really don't think it's less keystrokes, number 1, and number 2, I am always afraid of duplicating parts in inventory, so I would rather just use the Add a Part wizard. And the reason why is that it'll let you know, do you already have that part number on your parts list? And sometimes you do, and that kind of bypasses it. That's why I don't use that quick part feature, but it's up to you. And if you're using accounting, guys, you are going to want to replace your placeholders. There are some people, I actually talked to a gal last week, who they actually don't track, they don't really count their inventory, let's put it that way. They don't use the bookkeeping, the accounting, they don't care about costing, they just care about sales numbers for their sales tax and just their generalized sales numbers for their income numbers. You can leave these as placeholders and just put oil filter, $5, and not have any more information. So if you use a system that way, you don't have to require it to be replaced. But again, like I said, everybody on this call, I think we want to track our accounting. Now down here, this is the other side of the transaction. This is getting the part information on your RO. This is the cost part, which of course my orientation always being the bookkeeper, this makes sure we're getting our income and expense, our P&L statement correct. So I say always require a cost on everything, buyout, parts, sublet. That's that warning that keeps coming up. You guys are saying you don't have a cost on that. Remember I added that oil filter? So I always have the opportunity to allow a manager override because, frankly, you could always cash out a customer and go back and void that RO on the cashier and then enter a cost later. Sometimes you just got to get somebody out the door. So I always allow, as you can see, these are always checked. But this is very important. It's a good habit to get into to make sure you guys always have a cost in there. That way your numbers stay valid. You know, it's kind of garbage in, garbage out. You need to make sure you always have a cost there, and that'll prompt you. Any questions? I want to stop here just for a minute and see if we have any questions on this. Okay, guys, I'm going to keep going and get through this one, and we're almost done. It's the lion's share of today's webinar. So parts price matrix. I have this use price matrix for new and catalog parts. This just means, like I said, 70% of all my parts I would order online. It means when I brought that catalog part over onto my RO, it would automatically price it for me according to my parts price matrix. And same thing, price matrix for parts, for buyout parts. Now you guys know I hardly ever used it, but if I did, like I put in used tire, and that's a buyout part, it would tell my matrix to say, hey, listen up and apply my matrix. Well, of course, for a tire, I probably have to reprice it anyway. But by the way, we do have multiple price matrices coming out in our next update, which is in beta right now. So that's a really cool feature, guys. And again, always allow the manager override. And the last thing is reset base parts cost at purchase. And the way that this works a little bit differently than it did in MotorTraxx is, I think I talked about this example on day 2, but if you buy an oil filter for $3, and then you buy it again for $3, and then you buy it for $3.50, what may happen is, you know, you want to make sure that you're selling that part based on $3.50. Why do you want to sell it based on $3? Now, there is some averaging that goes on in there, and I wrote a really great article about this last year that explains the averaging. So you also have the opportunity to learn a little bit about, you know, how that averaging works, but the system takes care of it itself. But this is a handy way just to make sure you guys are getting the most out of, you know, your purchasing power. By the way, it only resets it upwards. It doesn't reset it downward. Let's say, for example, you guys get a steal on antifreeze. Well, it still is going to sell that part based on the amount that you purchase it for most of the time. So if you guys get the benefit of buying, you know, really well during a sale, you don't pass it on to your customer. You put it in your own pocketbook. So physical inventory, real quick, this is just for the when you're running a physical inventory, this just tells you what you want to include on the report. We also have parts invoice set up if you are selling parts over the parts counter here instead of the service counter. Disclaimers, again, are warranties.
Sabrina?
Yeah.
On the part invoice, real quick.
Yeah.
When you do a credit, let's say somebody brings back a part.
Yeah.
Can you have a prefix just for a credit setup, like let's say a CM and then a number, or is it all the same?
If you put the prefix here and put the CM there, it would make every parts invoice have a CM in front of it. But you know that you can go ahead and manually change that. I'll show you that here in just a minute.
Well, I know, but then now you have to rely on everybody to manually change it if it was a credit memo.
No, that's an interesting concept. Well, let's talk. So how?
Because on like MotorTraxx, it always says invoice, but you never know it's a credit until if you have to look down at the bottom and.
Well, the problem with that concept, if I may, is that because we allow both purchases and returns on the same invoice, how is it to know? I mean, there's no way for it to automatically understand that it doesn't have any purchases on there because we allow it to go both ways.
You say returns on an invoice going like a negative, like a -1 quantity. Yeah.
Yeah, and the possibility that we also can have a credit and a credit on an invoice. We can credit a part back on the invoice.
Charge. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good point. So I appreciate the sentiment though, but you could actually, like you said, you would be required to actually do it on the fly, but you could let your people know. Can you manually change that? So good question. Yeah.
I've got a question on this parts invoice, on counter invoice. And I talked around about this a long time back. I didn't know if you guys made any inroads to that. I guess it prints a full page for the counter sale parts invoice.
Yeah, because it's on plain paper.
Right. My suggestion was, if it wouldn't be too big a deal, that we could go to a half-page print with it. Then we can use perforated paper, and we already have our duplicate for the customer on the bottom side.
What do you think, Rex?
Would that be a big deal to implement, possibly?
It's really nothing more than a report. The invoice form is a report. I guess in the programmer's eyes, his question would be, what happens if I've got a lot of parts on a single parts counter invoice, which sometimes happens. They would have to know to roll the duplicates over to the second thing. But I don't see any reason that it's not possible. It mostly gets down to being a line count kind of thing and what's available there.
So
I don't know who you talked to about it and whether it got written up or not, but I will put that in as a suggestion. Talk to Rob about it.
We get so used to it. The dealers are all doing it that way on their lasers. So.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
I have a question.
Sure.
The question is if you're doing a parts invoice and somebody wants to make a return at the same time, you can put in a -1 for that part, but it doesn't calculate the sales tax it doesn't take that part out. Does the new system do that?
Are you saying the MotorTraxx didn't do that?
The old MotorTraxx, yeah, the old MotorTraxx, if you were selling, let's say you sold 2 items for $5, and the guy had a return for a $2.50 part, so you can put in that same part number, make it a -1. It would subtract the $2.50, but it doesn't subtract the sales tax.
You know what? I'm remembering that now. That little trick, which was never formally published, was created to help one specific customer. It was a little customization that Doug did unbeknownst to us, and it was really never fully fleshed out. It wasn't supposed to have happened. It was the sort of behind-the-scenes little trick there, and so I suspect he never got it. I didn't realize it didn't do the tax correctly going backwards.
Ours does the tax.
Yeah, I would have thought so, but but MaxxTraxx allows for refunds as well as sales on the repair orders now, and it knows how to do it, and it does it correctly. So the answer is, yeah, it's fine in the new program.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the other question is when you when you make a purchase of something, and let's say you went to your local automotive repair guy or shop parts house, and you bought a part, and he charged you sales tax just because it's one of those piddly things, and you went to enter it as a PO. Do you have a facility? Does it have a place now to enter in sales tax that you pay?
Oh, I'm pretty sure it does. Let's double check.
Because the old system didn't allow you to do that.
Yeah, you had to
tax, shipping, whatever.
Right.
Sales tax, right here. Yep.
So when you're making a purchase, okay.
Yep. So if you guys if they're doing that, or if you're doing, if you're buying small, which I would love eventually to get another under freight, have one that says small tools, so it can automatically go to your general ledger, small tools, and then you have sales tax on that. Or some people buy, supplies and they charge you sales tax, so that's where you enter that in. Yeah.
Right.
By the way, here's also where you enter your supply charges. When you're purchasing them from a vendor, you can enter in supply charges, or if you click on Add Line Item, the bottom one says Shop Supply. You can actually put in the vendor's part number for shop towels or whatever, and put in the description and the amount. Yeah, good.
But it does not put that into inventory.
It does not. Correct. Thank you, Rex. This
Sabrina, going one step further on that sales tax. Then I assume if you're doing accounting, there's some place that you would tie that particular line to a general ledger account.
Yep.
Sales tax purchase or something.
Yep. It goes under financial, sales tax is a $60,000 account. Exactly. And this miscellaneous charge goes to a $50,000 account, cost of goods sold supply.
But you make up that particular account, so now that's not mixed into the sales tax that's being generated on the ROs or parts invoices.
Yeah, it's separate. Yep, they're taxed separately on the general ledger.
So someplace there's a setup for the sales tax line on a PO to where to put that amount?
Right.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Ashley, is it on the PO or is it just once you convert it, Rex? Let's look. Is that what you're talking about,
Bill?
Bill?
Forward.
Let's see. Create new parts order. Let's just do one. Yep, there it is. Sure does. Yep. That's all taken care of for you. Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's handled in the background on your general ledger. Good there. So let's look. I think I had 2 more things I wanted to double check on here. This is if you're using the parts counter. Quote setup. This just sets up, the numbering for your quotes. You have the ability to have your quotes expire after 30, 60, 90, whatever you want, or never. And you can always, in the vehicle record, which is where you find those quotes, you can always uncheck the box or check a box that shows expired quotes. Personally, I left this at 0 because no matter how old it was, we pretty much always would honor our quotes, even if the parts prices went up. That's kind of the way we are. But we also said, keep it in mind that if you're ever pulling over a quote, you better double check that the prices weren't way, way out of line. But that's completely customizable to you.
And you can do quotes in either RO or parts invoices?
You know what? I don't think we have quotes in parts invoices, do we, Rex?
Nope, I don't think so.
Not on the parts counter. We only have quotes right now on service counter.
And then when you have quotes and you convert it over to invoices, does it update the pricing to the current pricing? When you use a parts matrix like, A, B, C, D, or E, or F?
No, it does. It stays. Good question. Very good question. No, it stays at the dollar amount of the parts, actually, and the labor, by the way, if you change your labor rate, that was in the quote. It does not update it.
So you do have to update the quote if let's say it's 45 days and there's been increases and stuff.
Right, because the quote is a quote. I mean, that's the amount that you actually quoted them. So they could come after you if you said, well, here was your quote, and it's actually changed the dollar amounts.
No, I know, and we explain to people when we convert it, but we do it on the parts invoicing now, which we don't have. But we explain, we say, well, there's been a price increase 60 days ago, so, whatever.
Okay, and you know what? I got that question here. I'm finally reading these questions, guys. If you do update a part in inventory and it's already on the estimate and you want to reflect updated information, let's say the part is way more expensive when you buy it than when it was when you did your original RO, you do have to delete it and re-enter that part to get the latest and greatest information. Remember, we talked about that reset base cost, and if your price matrix is based on cost, you would, in fact, have to take that part off, put it back on to reflect the latest and greatest. Go ahead.
Do you see you guys putting quotes in the parts counter?
I don't see any reason why not. I'm surprised that it's not there already.
We probably do 10, 15 quotes a day just in parts counter.
Just on parts counter.
Yeah.
Let me do that.
Let me
Part.
jot that down.
I'm writing it down too.
Okay.
And you know, the other thing, guys, is we are going to, and I don't know if it's going to be in the fall release. I don't think so. It may end up being next spring. We're going to kind of revisit the whole approach to revisions, recommended services, and quotes. I'm kind of reevaluating the whole process for that and see if we can make that a little bit smoother workflow. So if you guys do have some thoughts about how quotes are used in your shops, you know, shoot me an email. I'd love to kind of do an offline chat with you and talk a little bit about some of the ways that you use it and just get some user feedback, because of course that's how we, you know, do the best job of doing changes in our software. So please do get back to us with some input on that. And then our last two here, tech worksheets. This just prints your tech worksheets to a different printer. This is for people that have pre-printed headers for their ROs and they don't want to waste those papers or those pre-printed letterhead for their technicians. So you can send it to a different printer. And then the defaults, and these are pretty cool. These are important as far as I'm concerned. You can default new and free-form labors, of course, is taxable. Buyouts is taxable. Of course, you guys need this for whatever state you're in so that you never have to worry about, man, oh, man, am I charging tax on these. But the cool one here is linking your flat and build rate labors together. And this just means that if you are going to bill a customer an hour, you're automatically going to pay your tech an hour. Now, you can uncheck this. We did this a fair amount of time, and actually uncheck it, forgive me, at the RO level, because, you know, every once in a while they get a frozen bolt or something like that where you got to pay your guy an extra, you know, 3/10 or half an hour or whatever it took, but you don't really think you can pass that on to the customer. So that's where you would unlink it at the individual labor service on the RO and change that. Now here, very important, because this talks about those profit monitors, which I think are some of the top features of MaxxTraxx. You set, what's your profit percentage target for labor? And then for the overall RO. And this is what turns on that profit monitor to be red or green. You have to have a percentage in here. And by the way that you turn on the parts or the profit percentage targets for parts is just by setting up your parts price matrix. So remember we talked a little bit about on that task list, things that you need to get set up. You really need to set up a parts price matrix in order for that feature to work and to be able to automatically apply that parts price matrix to your incoming inventory, so it does your automatically prices your parts for you. And then, of course, in that profit calculation, you have the option: do I want to include, when I'm thinking about, you know, cores? Some people, well, for me, if we paid $10 for a core, we charge a customer $10 for a core. But if you wanted to calculate profit on that, you may want to say, I'm going to include cores on that calculation. Same thing with sublets. You know, we probably would mark our sublets up maybe 10, 20%, maybe 25%, not very often. So I actually would probably take sublets out of my profit calculation because for me that's kind of a non-negotiable. But if you want to, you know, again, have that in your overall profit calculation, you can check it. Supply charges, again, there's a profitability there, whether or not you want to, you know, add that in. And as well as the other user charges, up to 3, remember, on parts, like hazardous materials or that kind of thing. Now, keep in mind, supply charges and user charges, we're not going to have the cost in there. We're only going to have the income part of it. And then kits. If you guys use kits, always check this box. And what this does is when you add a kit to an RO, it selects all the items in the kit because it's so much easier to uncheck 1 or 2 items that you're not using in the kit than to go through and every single time you guys select the kit have to check all the boxes. So this is really a good one to have turned on. So I kind of wanted to spend some time explain what each one of these features meant. Again, if you guys just want some, you know, assistance with setup, please ask anybody in tech support. Feel free to give me a call or shoot me an email, and I can always jump in and give you my 2 cents on a couple of these different things, or do kind of a Q&A with you guys, ask you how you run your shop and tell me about your workflow, and then we can use these features, set up these features that'll best fit your workflow, because it's all about saving you guys time, and there's a lot of time-saving features in here. So I'd rather you guys give us a call to make good use of these features. Now, real quick on
Sabrina?
the setup. Yes.
Real quick, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
On the RO at the big,
Yeah.
I think it was like maybe session number 1, you said a part had to be tied to a labor on an RO invoice. You can't just put a line item of a part by itself, correct?
Correct. Yeah, and that's actually not even an option in here. It always has to be done that way.
Okay. Now in a parts invoice,
Yes.
can you add a labor line item?
Yes.
And in a parts invoice, does either one need to be tied to one another?
And adding a parts from a part list, you can see I can sell just this oil filter all by itself.
Okay, now I want to add a labor.
Yep, down here. Add.
Okay. And therefore I don't have to have the two tied together.
Correct.
As you do in an RO.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Very, very good question. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we just have that structure required in the RO. And why? Because in an RO, when it prints out, the whole reason why it's set up this way is when it prints out, it's got this structure. It puts the reason for service, the labor, the parts underneath, and then it goes to the next line. And of course, I just have one reason for service. But this line right here, right above the revision box, there's a line in there each time you add something different, and it makes it's more the dealer visual of breaking up your invoice, and that's the workflow we have in RO. Yeah, good question. Okay, so jumping back into my last setup area under this workstation. Again, these are a couple little features, but they are so essential to workflow. So they're all set up at individual workstation level, and here are the two keys. Warn me if I have parts in the RO that need to be ordered. Now remember, I told you guys I turned this off January 2nd, like by 9 o'clock in the morning, and then I didn't use that automatic feature that says, hey, you don't have these parts in stock. You want to order them? Because remember, that creates a purchase order on the fly, and then when you get the vendor invoice, all you do is convert it, put a vendor invoice number on there, and there's all your data entry. And again, I didn't know that for 2.5 months, I'll be honest. It was kind of a really big faux pas. So if you do have to turn this off, let's look. When you go to save, it prompts you. This is the notice I'm talking about. So the parts on your RO aren't in stock. You need to order them. So remember, you could go through the whole process here, right? Click your vendor. So you have an option here to check this box, don't show me this form, and it should say ever, ever, ever again, because that's what happens. If you turn this off and then say exit without ordering, you'll notice when you go back into this setup, this box is unchecked. So if you guys are ever frustrated, you just need to turn that puppy off because you just can't look at it one more time, this is where you turn it back on. And it's just a great workflow tool because you may not do it right in the beginning, but I'm telling you guys, it saved me about 60% because I took about a month to do a quick analysis of this, and actually not so quick analysis, but it was worth it. About 60% of my data entry was reduced because I used that tie-in feature. Now, the fact of the matter is that you may still pick up the phone and call and say, hey, get me those filters coming, but you still can use that feature a couple of different ways. Frankly, when that part does show up, you still could go into your RO, add it right here, put the, oh yeah, here's my, let's just throw this on here, here's my radiator, and I have my vendor invoice right in front of me, guys. This is my workflow. I'm just adding it right here, and the only reason why I'm doing this is because it's letting me just do a quick way of entering in my RO.
I would assume, Sabrina, that under permissions, your counter guys probably could not even clear that checkbox.
Sure they can. They can just bypass it. Do you want to save changes? No.
So in permissions, you can't. You don't have various levels of what they can and can't do.
The ability.
But don't show me this form again. I mean, let's say it's just a.
Anybody could do it. Anybody could click this. Yeah, you can't actually turn that off. And it says here, this can also be turned on and off at the workstation setup. Of course, after I turned it off, I never saw it again. But no, there's really no way to lock this out and force your guys to do it.
Can anybody go into setups then Or does permissions have a pretty good level?
Oh, yes, you can. Yes, you can.
Okay.
You can go into setups, security groups, and under one of these, I'll just click on one or hit edit. Yeah, you can just go in here and tell it whether or not you want to be able to go into it. It's just workstation setups right here. That's where they would go in and turn it on or off. But like as I just showed you, you could actually turn it off right at the RO level.
I was going to say, even if the guy doesn't have permission to go into workstation setups,
he can turn it off.
He would have permission on that particular box,
yep.
Yeah, and then
yep.
that would turn it off. Okay.
Yep. Yeah, so, you know, it's really a training issue, and I do, like I said, it's one of my favorite features that I just did not get the benefit of using for the first couple of months, and boy, oh boy, was it a mistake. Now, the flip side of that, warn me if I have parts that have been ordered or received but not put on an RO. So remember, you guys remember this, we have the option when we're restocking an invoice, we can say, this particular part was ordered for this particular repair order. Remember, you can click on that button and it shows you all your open ROs. So it will remind you if you've ordered a part, because remember, let's do that. If we go into restock parts, let's order, let's see. Let's grab this windshield. I bought one, I don't know, 150 bucks, and I'm putting it right here. Remember, reserve item for repair order. Click on this button, and here when I click the select button, this is the stuff on my service counter. Now, I'm only showing 2 and not 3 because the third one is still in appointment status. It doesn't even have an RO number yet. So if I were to reserve it for this Toyota, okay, and then click OK, and then save it and post it, and it says, yeah, I didn't put in a target amount yet because I didn't know what it was. I'm going to post vendor anyway and put in my fake vendor invoice number. It gives me this warning. Don't forget, Sabrina, that's on the repair. Now, theoretically, it's in the repair order. It's not on the repair order. Let me show you what I mean. If I go into that Toyota, Bob's Toyota, and again, I'm getting my windshield warning, and a oil filter kit. It's actually not on here. It's under this parts on order button. Check it out. There it is, windshield. Okay? Now, the way that I can get it on here quickly, though, and this is a really cool feature, let's say I just grab a label, right-click, and here I'm going to add, instead of parts from part list, which I could do and say that windshield, if you go down to from parts on order, see, I'm all about not typing, by the way, you just click on the button in the select column. It's not as obvious select column, but hit select and click OK. I'll be honest with you guys. I'll tell you what I did for the longest time. I would right-click, go add parts on order, and I go, oh, there it is, OK. And I'm like, darn it, where'd it go? Where'd it go? And I'll be honest, I did not know that you had to click in the select column. So I'm sharing with you all my little boo-boos. Then when you click OK, I don't have to retype the number. So that's just some workflow, key workflows. And please never hesitate to call us and find out, you know, I just want a little more feedback. And what I used to do a lot is after people practice, watch a couple of videos, practice for a couple of weeks, is I would say, okay, I'm going to run you through your paces. And I would dial up and say, I'd be looking at your screen, and I would watch you beginning to end. Start an RO, add some labor, maybe put a kit in there, do some restock parts tickets, and just watch you. But as I would go through, I could say, oh, hey, just click on here, or you know what, you got a little shortcut there. And it's just these teeny little tweaks here and there that all of us in tech support, are more than happy to spend a little time and show you some shortcuts or let you know about some additional features. And even if you've been running the program for 3 months and you're like, okay, I got it under my belt, I got a slower week coming up, I want to learn some more features. We're here to make sure you guys know how to take care of every single advantage in the program. So call us after you've kind of gotten through it. Because, you know, with all software programs, once you get the basics down, you're not going to go explore and figure out this feature and that feature. So that's where we can kind of help give you a fresh approach, a fresh look at the program to learn more stuff. And there's literally, I still, every week, still learn new features. I mean, I talk to Mark, the owner, all the time, and he's like, well, it does this and it does that. Or somebody will call in and say, well, I really wish it did this. And Mark's all, oh, yeah, you know, I think in 2007 I put that in. And lo and behold, that feature is in there. So literally, when I say there are hundreds and hundreds of features, I mean it. So I just want you guys to know that we are here to help you in the beginning, to help you with the practice version, to help you on your first day or two. I cannot tell you all the time. Somebody's got their first day. I tell them, don't go crazy and bang your head on the desk. Give us a quick call. It's a 30-second question, and we're going to be able to help you through that first couple of days. And after the first week, you guys, you're going to be comfortable, and after the first couple of months, it's going to be just as good as MotorTraxx, but better. And I think the key is dropping everything you thought about MotorTraxx and taking advantage of all these really cool features, because there's so much in here. And again, you guys knew I loved MotorTraxx, but now I can't imagine a shop running their business on that DOS program. And I can't believe I'm saying that after all these years, because I was such a fan. So I hope that this was useful on going over some of these highlights about getting set up. As far as the Getting Started workbook, let's jump back over here real quick. Any questions on how to do these tasks? These, again, in their parentheses, refer to the user manual. And it steps you through in that user manual setting up each one of these features. So please feel free to ask us about that. Now, the other thing, the other tool that we had, and this is really more for new users, is that every single option here under this shop information for the setup, every single entry field in here, now a lot of it you guys have the benefit of being converted over from MotorTraxx, a lot of it's filled in for you, but this means something is being customized in the program. Company information, your parts invoice setup, your, of course, labor rates, average cost. If there's a line here, the system is asking you for information. Now, do you have to use all this stuff? Absolutely not. Do you have to use all these add-on charges? Absolutely not. But it gives you, it lets you know you have options. You know, for example, select printed invoice style. Look at there's requirements. We got the default, but 3 states require a very specific invoice style. So it's not a huge read, but we've sure taken a lot of time to put in essential information into this Getting Started guide. And just thumbing through here, it prompts you, well, you get to put in your own warranty. You can put in a starting number for your purchase orders if you want to. So it just gives you an opportunity to see all the different features. For example, this workstation setup, okay, and sales tax rate. Some of these are more essential than the others. So feel free to ask us if you have any questions. And my closing statement will be, after you guys are ready, after practicing on the practice version, I hope everybody takes advantage of that, you will be sending in your order form and this release. So last thing, I just want to run over these checkpoints. And we need this prior to scheduling your go live. Now we'll install you without the release on the practice version. And I have actually had a shop, and I sold this guy back in '98. He was on a practice version, and after 2 months he said, you know what, Sabrina, I'm just going to keep going. I'm not going to convert. I'm like, really? He says, yeah, my wife loves Quicken. You know, I think that is just her calling to do the books by hand every night, but that's her deal. And he just kept going. He actually never did reconvert his data. I don't recommend it, but some people do. But again, once you go live, we need this checkbox, and it says you understand those tasks on the checklist that we talked about. You know how to use a user manual. You need to set up, remember, those certain sections that have a star next to an asterisk. Everybody's been trained. And remember, guys, we have the online training videos for you, but we're still here if you do want a little one-on-one training. And after you've done the training videos, we're more than happy to do that. We have to have you on minimum hardware requirements. And by the way, we won't even install you on a practice version anymore. We used to. But you have to have the minimum hardware specs before we install you. Please put in a backup system. And I'll have to be honest, I was a baddie. I did not have a good, effective backup system until I actually got MaxxTraxx. Our MotorTraxx was a little bit helter-skelter. And we do have online data backup available for you guys. And if you are converted, which you are, We do not have, this is not a Windows version of MotorTraxx, which I think you guys know by now. There is a converted data section, which you realize. Again, the practice version, Rosemary, you've had an opportunity to see that. You get a first-hand opportunity to see what converts and what doesn't, and some information like the kits and your follow-up letters, or your marketing letters need to be modified. And everybody's going to keep a copy of MotorTraxx, of course, if you want to go back and refer to your parts purchase history, which does not convert, and, of course, your old financials. And I love this one. There are people that still want to use their dot matrix printers, and no, they don't work with MaxxTraxx. I love that question, but it came up 3 times, so I thought I'd better put it in here. So any other questions, guys? Any other
questions?
Sure.
Goes back to the program itself on pertaining to customers.
Yes.
Can you merge customers in case you accidentally duplicate them?
Yep, Bill, it's done in the customer record. So right here. Oh, you can merge vehicles. Yes, you can merge vehicles. I think you said merge. I think you said merge customers, but under vehicle
customers.
Yeah, merging customers. You know what? We can.
I mean, let's say somebody misspelled the last name, or you searched it by telephone number and they changed the telephone number, so now you created a new customer, and all of a sudden
all you do is you transfer the vehicle over to one of the customer, and then you just delete the wrong customer once he's blank.
And then, so all the history information is tied to the vehicle.
That's correct.
Right.
Okay, so when you transfer it, you're good there.
Yeah. Now the downside is that if somehow something's been put on their accounts receivable, you've got to clear out the receivable and put that balance over to the final customer that you're going to merge into, and then you can do that.
In regards to parts, can you merge parts like you can in MotorTraxx?
Not yet, but you will be able to. That is coming.
How about cross-reference?
Cross-reference is really kind of cool in this one.
Yeah, let's go ahead and show you. Part search. Rex, do you want me to give you a keyboard?
No, that's okay. You go ahead, but what I was going to say is that the next update has a much even enhanced cross-reference capacity in this. So
let's look real quick under here, cross-reference. You can
it's
add
on a limited number of cross-references.
Unlimited, cross-reference, and they can be an interchange part, which means it is interchangeable with another existing part that you actually have in cross-application. Yeah, thank you. That you have in stock, or it could be just a cross-reference number, and also superseded. This is very cool.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Okay. One of the ways that it does the supersessions is that you take an existing number, you go in and you type over the old number. You replace the old number with the new number, and it will come up and ask you if you want to make this a superseded number, and it puts the old number in as a superseded number cross-reference.
Dynamite.
So you have a trail of it. It's really slick.
Now, Sabrina, did I hear you?
Oh, I'm sorry, Bill, you broke out there just for a minute.
Oh,
what did you say? I lost you for a minute.
Same number of part levels, price levels.
Okay, I thought she said you only had it in labor, not the parts.
No. She was referring to something else.
Okay.
They're there.
Yep.
And then I know that the history and the buying history for parts don't get converted over, but do you have a
history of the parts doesn't. You're right. The sales history does come across.
Okay. Does the MaxxTraxx, though, from let's say that day forward,
show
the buy history? Okay.
Yeah.
So then you can see that. And then last question is, if you have an Excel spreadsheet, can you load inventory from a spreadsheet data?
Yes. We have what's called a catalog, and it has the feature that you can actually go in and update your catalogs yourself if you need. It's in the catalog, and then you can pull those parts from the catalog into the actual part file. But it's like the old MotorTraxx cataloging, except we made it available to you to run your own. You don't have to have us do it for you all the time.
Call you. Okay.
Yep. Yeah. Yep. It's under two-step process, Bill. You go under utilities, and you import that catalog. Whoops. import that catalog data. It's just it's a really cool utility. And then you can decide if you want to go in a Parts Manager and actually
update parts list with catalog prices right there.
Catalog prices.
Yeah. I guess
but you can pull those catalog parts. You don't even have to put them into your inventory until you actually need to, because one of the choices when you're adding a part to a labor within the repair order is to add it from the catalog, and it'll go out and search the catalog for that part. And if you've got the default set up to add to the inventory, then that part will come in, go through your price matrix, and put it on the RO, and also add that record to your inventory.
Now, is it possible using that? Let's say you have a parts inventory, actual parts, and a company updates. Let's say they had a price increase, and I get it on a spreadsheet. Obviously, it's got the part name or the number, the part description, and let's just say a jobber price, and then what my cost is. Can I import that information over, and it will update whether the description changed or the pricing changed? Will it update totally the all those inventory parts?
Because we allow duplicate part numbers in this, the catalog pricing update, you can import your changes into your catalog. It's now in the catalog. You can run to the manager and say, update my parts from the catalog. It's going to look for both a match in the number and the description. So if they change their description, then yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So there's not an easy way of just updating prices.
Well, yeah, as if they do make changes like that,
that's going to be skipped. Equal,
yeah.
If the description of part number is equal, then you'd be able to be okay.
Yeah.
Right.
And this last question is for you, Rex. How are we on the 2 stores, 1 warehouse?
You know, because of all the problems we've had with the with getting this new version out, I have to be honest with you, it hasn't had any attention for a while.
Okay. Okay.
Yep. So, good question.
It's still very high on the list of priorities, but getting this update out has taken all our resources because of the problems that Clarion itself has passed along to us.
Okay.
And
but check with us offline, and we'll keep an update and let you know how we're progressing
Rex
on
knows
it.
I do.
Oh yeah.
Okay, guys. Well, we're going to go ahead and wrap up today. If you guys have any questions, please do feel free to give us a call if you have any concerns. And I'm going to say one last time, we really do recommend you guys getting a practice version loaded up, because I think it's the best way to get comfortable, and I think it's the first step. It's really the first step, and whether or not, like I said, you upgrade in a month or next spring, I don't care. The practice version, as long as you need it, it's going to be there for you. So I appreciate you guys' time. Good luck with this, and I look forward to working with you guys when you do get loaded up, and we'll be here when you do go live, and it's exciting, and it's definitely well worth it. Thanks, everyone, for your participation. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, Sabrina.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.